never sleeps, pal.
Hey there, this is Pete Townsend from Norio Ventures, and this is episode 23 of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and what makes them do what they do. Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Top Tier Recruitment, a specialist recruitment consultancy in fintech and financial services. In this episode, we talk to Elaine Deehan, founder and CEO of Pocketwire, a money management app for kids and parents. Owen and I both met Elaine very recently at an Enterprise Ireland event, and we really wanted to capture the pre-launch excitement of Pocketwire, and Elaine was more than happy to join us. Outwardly, she's quite calm, but you could tell there's a fire inside. Looking back across her career, it feels like she's gotten ahead of the game by jumping right into new things. She's made some great relationships along the way. You could tell she believes in the 3 Ps, people, process, and platforms. But for Elaine, now it's time for the 4th P, which is Pocketwire. On with the show. Here we go again. Welcome to the 23rd episode of Money Never Sleeps. We're here in Start Lab on Camden Street in Dublin by Bank of Ireland. I'm Pete Townsend, and we're here with Elaine Deehan, founder and CEO of Pocketwire. Welcome to the show, Elaine.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Now, everyone just noticed for the listeners that I didn't get to say, and we're here with Owen Fitzgerald. Unfortunately, Owen was called away today, so this is my first time going solo, but no better guest to have than Elaine here to help me do that. So, Elaine, we met at the Fintech CEO Forum back just last week.
We did indeed, yes.
And I was really excited to hear more. I am really excited to hear more about what you're up to. I had a quick look at your LinkedIn profile and kind of saw that we had a lot of crossover going back over the last 10, 15 years, at least in topics, if not in terms of places where maybe I didn't work, but where I had lots of good chats with people who were working there. So just really want to dig into that a bit. So just to get us started, maybe just give us your backstory, how you ended up here, and what you're doing with Pocketwire.
Sure. Okay, so I started my career in financial services. I joined Citibank as a very young, immature person, not really knowing what or where I was going to go. And having spent a few years there, I was very fortunate. I worked with some really, really great people. People who gave me good opportunities, and there was a huge opportunity for learning. And Citibank is a great organisation like that, in that it really promotes people who want to learn and have a thirst and eager to learn, and are very eager to learn. And I had lots of different experiences in Citibank, in in life insurance, and in working on the business continuity side of the business. And I had great exposure in the payment space as well. And then from there, I took myself to a company called Centennial, which was one of the original, or is probably the original Irish fintech company when fintech wasn't even a thing.
What did they do? Because I hadn't really heard of them before.
Well, Centennial are, I think, still only the SEPA payments provider,
okay.
Direct debit payments provider in Ireland. So back in around about the time when I joined them, which was 2007, SEPA had actually just been enacted into legislation. So SEPA credit transfers, it was the harmonisation of payments across Europe, the European payment space. So at that time then, what Centennial saw an opportunity for was there was a need for a direct debit solution for the standardisation of paying direct debits through SEPA. So they set up a company to help corporates to manage all of their SEPA direct debit payments, and then equally so a payments engine for banks to be able to actually process and suck in these payments and process the payments in a compliant manner. So I spent a few years there, and having worked in a fintech, unbeknownst to myself, that it was actually a fintech. And I think to anyone at the time who was working in Centennial, we didn't actually realise we were working in now what is the broader industry of fintech. From there then I went back into Citibank, and I worked in the Innovation Lab, which was a really great move for me. And I think working in the Innovation Lab opened my mind to the possibilities of technology and banking, and the bringing together, the combination of both. And I got to work with some really great people in there, from lots of different backgrounds, from the SME side, from payments,
you
product,
did 4 years there,
foreign exchange, 5 years almost.
5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I just saw the things you listed out there in your LinkedIn profile: mobile payments, blockchain, DLT. Yeah.
All of those things.
Doing those things in those years.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started, I think one of the first, one of the first projects I did in my time in the Innovation Lab in Citi was a mobile payments or mobile collections tool, actually, for which we were all named inventors. So you think about it, we patented this product back in I think the patent was 2012. So there was a patent for mobile collections in 2012. So that's how, I suppose, at the forefront of technology that Citi was trying to play. They were trying to play in that space. Whereas nowadays, mobile payments, we don't even think of them as a thing. It's just, it's happening. We do it. People are doing it. But only 6 years ago, we were awarded a patent for it. So It was a great time to join because, again, it was a coming together of people with hugely evangelical ideas and working with some really smart people on the technical side of the business. And then, Citi as a business itself is very innovative and was doing things, 200 years ago that a lot of other businesses weren't doing. And that ethos is still in Citi. And so we were always given that opportunity to push the boundaries and test new things. So It was a really great time to learn.
And then it was Currencyfair after that, yeah?
Yeah, and I suppose one of the things that really kind of whet my appetite when I was in Citibank was the idea of the whole startup ecosystem. And Citi was really great at actually engaging with the startup community through Citi Ventures, the Ventures wing out of Silicon Valley, and through the engagement in the ecosystem in Ireland. And so we tried, while we were great at engaging with them, we also tried to take and learn from them and actually model how the startups were operating within Citibank, and applying kind of the lean startup principles to big budget projects in Citibank, which had never been done before because people had big checks.
How did that go over?
Well, I think particularly, I suppose, with the timing when the lab was actually set up, the financial crisis had just happened. So rather than, and I suppose that's one of the things about Citi, rather than actually run, kind of bury itself and hide from that, they went, okay, well, we've got to reinvent ourselves. But capital was difficult for product managers to come by to actually develop new products and services. So anyone that was going to try and save them money and do things in a cost-effective manner was, that's exactly how they wanted to do it. So they really embraced it. But I suppose one of the things that it is harder to do is that, there's a huge mindset shift and a cultural change that has to happen in an organization that is very used to having every resource at its disposal. But it was great, and it was a great way to learn. And so it did really, I suppose, whet my appetite. And Currencyfair was one of those companies that I would have had my eye on a lot in terms of what they're doing in the space, foreign exchange payments. I had been working on a blockchain project in the foreign exchange space. So it was kind of a natural fit for me to consider, moving over there. And the opportunity presented itself, and I decided I'd take the risk and join startup world.
And you took the leap.
Took the leap, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that was about a year that you did at Currencyfair?
Just over a year and a quarter,
okay.
year and a half, more or less. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so it seems like, over those, would have been 13, 14 years that you had out there, everything that you experienced, everything that you did in the working world got you to a certain point where now it's become Pocketwire.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell me about the inspiration for Pocketwire.
I suppose the inspiration for Pocketwire comes from my own experience with my kids.
Yeah.
And seeing them interacting and handling money and having absolutely no regard for money whatsoever. And I think most parents would say that, and I even know from my own upbringing, it's, that the old adage, it doesn't grow on trees. But I think even more so now, money is so, physical money is actually so scarce in homes. I mean, I do have coins, and kind of my children would get fivers and tenors from their grandparents and that, but very often I'd find them rolled up in a ball and thrown on the floor, and they just had no sense of it. So, but I also found, that I do want them to learn about money, and I think any parent, wants their children to have some financial savvy as they get older, and so I suppose that, combined with my own knowledge and experience of how to actually put those two situations together and actually bring that offline process online, was really then the catalyst for me to actually, put some framework and put some thoughts and a proposal together around Pocketwire.
Okay, offline to online. We had Anya Malloy from Girl Crew on here a couple of episodes ago, and we talked about what is really an online to offline experience that Girl Crew are promoting. You familiar with Girl Crew?
Yeah. They have a Girl Crew Maynooth page, I think, yeah.
Perfect. And that it's starting with an online relationship that then becomes offline, and that you leverage that offline relationship. This is a different context, obviously. This is about money.
Yes.
But also that, like you said, looking after your kids. Tell us exactly how it works.
So Pocketwire is a digital mobile pocket money app, essentially. And a parent will have a mobile application, and it's linked to a prepaid card. And that card can be given then to the kid, for the child to actually spend their money on. So the parent can then top up their own card, their own Pocketwire account, and then transfer the money to the child's account. And from there, the child can then use that card to spend online, in store, with the parent having oversight of what their child is actually spending their money on.
Can you see where they are?
You can see, maybe not exactly at all points in time, but you can see where they've spent their money. You can see how much money they have access to. And it's great in the sense that when those kids are out and about, and maybe in an emergency, or maybe they've run out of money, that a quick message back to mum or dad to say, listen, can you, throw me over 50 euros? I need to get home, or I need to get a taxi, or my Pocketwire account is running low. Can you help out? Okay. So it gives the parent oversight of what they're spending their money on. And it can help then in those conversations around, well, look at where you're spending your money. Can you see why you don't have any? And really helping shape the child's understanding of how money actually impacts their life. So that's just it in a very simple simple context. We've lots of ideas. There's lots of things we want to do with Pocketwire in terms of actually the whole educational piece. It's not just about having money, spending it and it's gone, but also there are lots of other things that children, particularly in a cashless world, need to understand about money.
Yeah. How are you going to start to do that? Because my kids need some of that too.
I suppose bridging the gap between, in that online world. So they're all, kids nowadays, they're all online. So you take an example like the V-Bucks thing, right? And nearly every kid is playing Fortnite, right? From a certain age upwards. Your own children probably haven't ventured into it.
My kids aren't there yet. They're doing the dances from Fortnite.
Yeah. So but it will go very quickly from dances into, well, actually, do you know what? I need to buy that dance through Fortnite, and Fortnite has its own currency called V-Bucks.
Yeah.
And that's just a situation where children have absolutely no concept of the relative value between the V-Bucks and the currency and euro. So having, a tool where they can actually see where, I know how much it cost me in euro to buy my V-Bucks, which, essentially is a virtual dance.
Right.
But it also, it helps the child because they'll spend themselves. They'll pay from their own Pocketwire account, not from their parents. So it's not going to be that problem where parents' iTunes accounts are being racked up because the kid is buying their V-Bucks, buying their Roblox coins, etc., etc. So that's just one example of how Pocketwire can actually help in that situation where kids are just going to town on their parents' cards.
Okay. When you thought about doing this and getting this off the ground, Elaine, having worked in Citi, worked in a few other places that obviously would have been supportive of a new venture, right? Did you think about doing this within the corporate setting, or was it immediately just, hey, I'm going to do this?
It was sort of a natural evolution, if you will. I had, as we were chatting about earlier, I had moved my family lock, stock and barrel back to my roots, back to Moat. Mm-hmm. And then I was working full time, doing some work in AIB. And at that time, things with my own kids, I moved them back. So we spent a year away, moved them back, and we landed back to Maynooth. And I almost felt like I'd abandoned my kids. Pretty much at the school gate, you know, just said, off you go, and slap back into life in Maynooth. And they really struggled with that. And so it kind of came to a point in where I was working for AIB. I was working on the open banking PSD2 project, where I had to make a decision that my kids actually needed their mum for some time, because they really were struggling with that whole kind of moving back and trying to fit back in. And a year in their lives is such a short time that actually I didn't even realise the impact of how much things had changed, or the impact of that on them. So when I decided to embark on Pocketwire, I didn't have that option. I could have gone, I suppose, to, you know, a previous employer, but look, people I worked for, the banks, their projects are set out a year in advance, and they're so, budgets are so ring-fenced for compliance projects. But at the same time, I suppose I did always have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I always wanted to do my own thing. So I suppose this was something I could really get my hands around, get to grips with, and decided, no, I'm going to do this myself.
Okay. And how close are you to launch?
We are due to launch in Q1 of next year.
Okay.
So right now we have the prepaid program in place. We're working with a company called Prepaid Financial Services, which is another great Irish fintech story, actually. And we have that in place. We have our physical, we have the cards ready to go. And so now we're just building out our own.
You showed me the card earlier. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We did some good work with a really good designer on that. So we're building out our own API at the moment. And so once that's complete, then we'll build out all the front-end services, all the website, get all of our social media off the ground, up and running, and hopefully be ready kind of February of next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any specifically difficult decisions you've had to make so far?
With regard to
the business, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think luckily not just yet. I haven't had any very difficult decisions just yet. I mean, I'm sure those days will come.
There's 5 of you now, right?
There are 5. So I'm working with the 4 guys that I'm working full time with. Actually, they were all previously working at Currencyfair. Some of them were the original founders of Currencyfair.
Okay.
So and to work with a team like that made perfect sense to me, because I had the idea, and while I knew how to, bring a lot of the elements together, execution and actually, executing on the business side of it.
I didn't know this. You've got some of the original founding team of Currencyfair.
Yes, I do.
That are part of Pocketwire.
Yes, I do.
Nice one.
Yes.
Okay.
Hedging my bets.
All right. Not Brett himself.
Not Brett. No.
Okay.
No. I'm working with Jonathan and Pavel, Tim and Darren.
Oh, very cool.
So they're a great team.
It's a pretty cool story and it just looks like, again, the LinkedIn profile just gives it all away. But just connecting the dots across that, like I said, with everything that you've done so far, and just that it seems like the timing of the year and a bit that you did spend with Currencyfair was just at that point in time where you were ready to go out on your own, right?
Probably, yeah. And I think
the stars are aligned here. Mm-hmm. At that same point where your kids are hitting a certain age where you're concerned about how they're spending money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually I did have the idea for Pocketwire before my kids actually, and their own experiences with money started. We've always had au pairs to help us mind the kids. Mm-hmm. And what do you pay au pairs? You pay them pocket money.
Yeah.
And so I used to get really, really frustrated every Friday going, oh, God, I have to go to the bloody ATM now and take money out to pay the au pair. And I used to think, God, if there was just something I could wire her money, a little bit kind of like Revolut style. I did a little bit of research and just realised I backed away from it completely, because I went, this is mammoth. I don't even know where to go, how to start this. And then when I went to Currencyfair and started learning about, kind of building relationships within business and the different elements and the different components for an actual business that you need. Because that's the thing in startups, you get access and you get exposure to every facet of the business, not just, I suppose in Citibank I did have that a little bit in the lab.
Yeah.
But when you're in a corporate, you typically work within, your own in a silo essentially. But when I went to Currencyfair, then I had exposure to everything. And obviously then having worked with the founders, and I worked very closely with them when I was there, that enabled me then to realize all of the different components that I needed to bring together to actually make this dream a reality.
Okay. All right. That's pretty cool. And when, during that point in time of building this whole business model, right, and the whole approach, the tech plan, all of that, you've got the card now, right, and not yet ready for the market, but you've got the card, and that's kind of a big achievement, is having that something granular to hold on to that reflects your business. What was a moment so far where you realized, wow, I've really got something here that is worth building a business on? I
think it was probably when we did our initial kind of early stage customer research and customer validation. And I pushed out my survey, just kind of outlining the proposition, what problems Pocketwire was going to solve, asking people for input and feedback. And that went out sort of like, I suppose, in a mini viral effect to, up to, I think, about 150 people. Yeah. Got it and took the survey, and I got some really good feedback. But I think the realization that I had something was when I was getting taps on the shoulders in the schoolyard. Okay. From people I didn't know, asking me, was I the Pocketwire lady? Really? And when was it going to be available? Wow. That was for me the moment that I realized, yeah, I think we're onto something here.
Okay. And how do you feel about it as a global thing rather than an Ireland thing?
Oh, it has to be global. I mean, we're living in a digital age, and all of the problems that we're attempting to solve are global problems, right? So Fortnite and V-Bucks and all the things, they're global problems. Yeah. And okay, there are certain markets that will always lag behind because, economically, maybe they're just not in the same position as we are. But certainly, you look at the markets that are very similar and reflect a lot of, I suppose, how we are and how we behave in Ireland with regards to money and even economically quite similar. There's a huge opportunity for Pocketwire.
Absolutely. No, I can see that. In terms of yourself, when you think about how things have gone pretty much the last year that you've been building this, yeah?
Yeah.
What are some of the personality traits that you think have been most helpful to you in getting to this point?
I would think grit.
Yeah.
Determination.
Yeah. Is there a bit of fire in there?
A little bit of fire in the belly, yeah. I suppose there will always be times where you doubt yourself or... but just knowing and believing, I suppose that's self-belief that yes, I'm onto something, and yeah, there have been days that are maybe tough, or things don't pan out the way you want, or I suppose maybe particularly like when you talk to maybe some investors or somebody gives you feedback and it doesn't make sense to them, and they kind of take your idea and stamp all over it. Mm-hmm. I go back to that moment when someone taps me on the shoulder and says, when is this going to be ready, Elaine? Yeah. They're the people I want. That's what motivates me and keeps me going.
It's that feeling in your stomach.
Yeah,
that it's a gut. You're doing the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got so much more ahead of you. I'm now nearly 2 years in doing this and doing what I do. And I keep thinking back to that moment that I felt that I was doing the right thing. It was probably about 6 months ago, where it was on one given day, I think, I had that similar experience where I was out at an event and 4 or 5 people came up to me and said, Pete, can you help me with this? And that was it. And I just remember that day. And that was after nearly a year and a half of toiling, right, to get to that point. So I guess if you go out and do market research and spread the word, you're going to get that feeling a little bit quicker, which is awesome. Anything that you kind of note in yourself that, we talked about the helpful side, anything that you think maybe I could have done this differently so far? Again, you're at such an early stage of the business, but, and maybe that's the time to think about it and say, what might I do a bit differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think, getting to this stage, it is so early, and I suppose it's hard to see maybe at this stage, where things have gone wrong or mistakes have been made. But I suppose anything that I've done or things that have never gone to plan, I just look at them as learning opportunities and say, okay, tomorrow's a new day, fresh start. And any decision or anything that I'm going to do or the team is going to take on, we have plenty of things to learn from and to draw from. And that's, I suppose, one of the things working with the team that I'm working with is that we have such a broad array of experience. They're all extremely experienced in both financial service and banking, as well as in the startup and the fintech world. And so there's always somebody that will help or has an idea to get over something. We work so well together in that respect.
Okay. And who do you lean on?
Well, it's definitely within the business. I lean on all of the guys.
It seems like you have an all-star cast.
We have an all-star cast, and while I might lean on one or two of them much more frequently than others, as soon as I have one thing to lean on with another one of the guys, it might be a bigger thing completely. The response is the same, and it's they're all equally as valuable to me and me to them. So it's the perfect blend of people with a I suppose a very similar set of values, and we're very, very aligned in that. I suppose in my personal life, obviously, I lean a lot on my husband.
Of course.
Yeah. And my mum, I suppose she would be one of my biggest. And even in a personal capacity, a lot of how I lean on her and what I've learned from her just plays out into my professional life as well.
Well, it's all connected.
It's hugely
right?
Connected.
Your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your kids, the way you're thinking about money, kids' money, your life and how they, you want to be able to give them opportunities, but also be protective of them, right? So it's just when you can find this thing that, to drive your life forward from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective, could all be one thing, right? That's awesome. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. All right. Well, at this stage, if Owen was here, what he would say is we've come full circle, which we kind of have in a quick way. But what would people not expect to know about Elaine?
What they don't know about me is probably for a reason.
Right.
It doesn't need to be known. I'm
No,
joking. I'm
no.
joking. I'm pretty much an open book. What would they not know about me?
Because this is where Owen kind of digs in to start to find the title for the episode.
Oh,
so
right.
Listen to the last few minutes, try to find something unique about the person, and then he goes off to find a rap song.
Right.
That describes that moment.
Oh, does that become the theme tune?
Yeah. So Pete Rose, who was on the show last week, he had been trained in midwifery, just through like an ambulance driver course type of thing that he had done in the past. And so he admitted that people wouldn't expect to know that Pete Rose is trained in midwifery.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive accolade.
Yeah, and I admitted that I had seen a video of that as part of my first responder training that I did when I was a lifeguard. So there's surprising things in everybody.
Yeah, maybe not as colorful. Bueno, la gente que no conoce que hablo español.
Oh, español, sí.
Sí, hablo español. I think I'm half Spanish in my head. I don't look it, but I am.
Cuando yo tengo 16 años, yo trabajo en la piscina pública en Boston, en Estados Unidos. Y los hijos puertorriqueños habla, siéntate, sate del agua. That's how I learned most of my Spanish. So I told this story when I was in South America, and I got some funny looks.
Oh my God! Well, I wouldn't be surprised with that accent. I'm not sure that the Boston and the Puerto Rican accent. I think there's a little bit of French going on there.
Yeah,
actually.
there is. No, people say that I speak French with a Spanish accent, so it's
yeah. No, I speak Spanish. We always had Spanish students growing up.
Okay.
So from the time I was about 7, we always had Spanish kids visiting and staying for summers, and actually then went on to stay with us for a year. They do an academic year in Ireland.
Yeah.
And from the very first moment I met them, I was just transfixed by this language that they could speak, and it was
language.
so fast. And I was like, how can they understand each other? They're talking so fast. And I just immersed myself in the language, and I was fluent by the time I was 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
That works.
Yep, and I made some of my best friends. I just walked up to a girl on the street. She was doing a year in school in Moat, and I was 11. And I walked up and I said, "¿Tú eres español?" And she said, "Sí, tú eres español." And I said, "No." Yeah. But we started talking, and that was almost 30 years ago, and we're still best friends.
Well, that's perfect. Well, we got something quite unique to close this on. So,
there
Elaine, thank you so much. And best of luck getting Pocketwire off the ground.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Money never sleeps, pal. We'd like to thank Elaine for opening up her mind for the 23rd episode of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast brought to you by Norio Ventures and Owen Fitzgerald, and sponsored by Top Tier Recruitment. You can find out more about Elaine and Pocketwire on Pocketwire.com and by following Pocketwire Me on Twitter. Just keep in mind that as Pocketwire is still in stealth mode, their social media presence is just getting off the ground. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to Money Never Sleeps on Transistor.fm, iTunes, Spotify, or on your favorite online media channel, and leave us a review. Each one helps. You can now access all the Money Never Sleeps episodes through a link on the podcast page on the Norio Ventures website, which is norioventures.com. If you're an entrepreneur with a story to tell anywhere in the world, drop us a line using the contact form on the Norio Ventures website. We'd like to thank Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. And thanks to Bank of Ireland Start Lab for hosting us, with a shout out to Carolyn Quinlan and for all that they do for the startup community in Ireland. Till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!